got the driver.
Motherfucker!
Thanks for watching my analysis of Drive, the 2011 action drama directed by Nicolas Winding Refn, written by Hossein Amini, and based on the 2005 novel of the same name by James Sallis. Drive stars Ryan Gosling as driver, Carey Mulligan as Irene, Oscar Isaac as Standard, Bryan Cranston as Shannon, Christina Hendricks as Blanche, Ron Perlman as Nino, and Albert Brooks as Bernie. Before I get started, I would appreciate it if you would subscribe to the Godfather of Cinema, movie reviews and more. Give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment, and hit the bell so that you won't miss any new videos that I'll upload in the future.
All units be advised. Possible vehicle in question.
Drive is set in Los Angeles, California, where an unnamed Hollywood stunt driver known only as Driver stops by a garage to pick up a car, and his boss, Shannon, has a special car waiting for him, a silver Impala.
Most popular car in the state of California.
Nothing on the outside of this Impala sets it apart from any other car of the same year, make, and model. Nothing except for what's under the hood, which is why no one would suspect the car or its driver to perform the way that they do. Jewish mobster Nino owns Nino's Pizzeria and co-owns Shannon's auto repair garage. Shannon wants to get into racing, but needs money for a car. Bernie, the other co-owner of the garage, talks his partner Nino into putting up $300,000 for a race car. But when Nino stops by the garage to see the car, all he sees is that all of the paint is scraped off the body and the seats are ripped out. Basically,
We paid 300 fucking grand
the car is just a shell and nothing special,
for this piece of shit.
which is exactly what Driver wanted the Impala to look like, a shell and nothing special, a car with all of the quality under the hood where it counted. Nino even admits that he would have been happier if the stock car looked like it was worth $300,000.
Shit, I'd pay 300 for something.
Rather than running like it was worth $300,000.
I want everybody to fucking see it.
And maybe this explains why Driver's neighbor Irene married a guy named Standard and gave him a son. Standard looks good, and although he did 6 months in jail, Standard is also weak, paying money for protection during his stint in jail and allowing a low-level gangster named Cook to call him a vagina, to beat him in front of his son, and to degrade him by telling him to fetch a Coke for his girlfriend.
And go get her a fucking Coke.
And speaking of the deceptive appearances of Driver's silver Impala and the used stock car, no one would ever suspect a small pawn shop of holding $1 million in cash, which is why the Philadelphia Mafia chose the pawn shop in the first place. And speaking of innocent looking, no one would ever suspect that one of the ordinary looking cars parked up the road from this pawn shop was there to rob Standard of the $1 million he agreed to rob the pawn shop of in order to satisfy his debt to Cook. But unlike Irene's husband, Standard, and other Standard dudes who wouldn't even notice the plain looking car up the road from the pawn shop, Driver notices certain details about the car right away, such as its reinforced bumpers and racing tires. This is because to Driver, details are everything, especially when it comes to his side hustle as a wheelman. The time that you need him to show up and the place you need him to be are crucial details, as well as the 5-minute waiting time.
Anything happens in that 5 minutes and I'm yours.
For instance, he keeps his word by showing up on time to pick up 2 armed robbers at the electronics superstore at the beginning of the film, and he doesn't panic and leave them stranded. Not even when the alarm goes off, or when the call goes out over his police scanner,
All units be advised.
or when only one of the robbers comes out of the store. Driver sits right there in the silver Impala and gives them exactly what he promised: 5 minutes. In fact, in telling Cook up front that he is only a driver, he does not carry a gun, and that he wants Cook to cancel Standard's debts in exchange for his services as a wheelman on the pawn shop robbery, Driver's professionalism shows that he has principles and sticks by those principles, unlike Shannon, who cheats him by getting an assistant director to pay him $1,000 for a dangerous stunt, but telling Driver that the assistant director only paid him $500 for the stunt. Also, notice how Driver walks away while Shannon and the assistant director are negotiating. Here, Driver shows that he trusts Shannon and takes his word. After Shannon tells him how much they are getting paid for the stunt, Driver doesn't say a word. He just goes out and does his job. And speaking of Shannon's dishonest dealings with Driver, let's look at Cook hiring men to ambush Standard and Driver on the pawn shop heist, instead of honoring his end of the deal to Driver and Standard like he agreed to. It doesn't matter how big and tough you look, a dog or a human may attack you if it senses weakness. And the fact that Standard is weak is given away by how others treat him, like Cook, who addresses him as a woman's vagina, then beating him in front of his son, then ordering him to fetch a Coke for his girlfriend
And go get her a fucking Coke.
And while Driver, like Standard, isn't big or tough looking either, when that gang sees him walking to his car on that parking lot, they know that taking him won't be easy, even bloody, and leave him alone, even though they aren't aware that he has a key sticking out of his fist and intent on using that key in his fist on them. And there is also the scene at the bar and grill in which a big imposing guy just walks up without being solicited, and as if to further intimidate Driver, this big nasty looking dude starts bragging about a past robbery that got his brother killed and himself 6 months behind bars. Driver listens quietly and then out of the blue looks up from his bacon and eggs right through the man's eyes and says in a calm, firm voice, and just like that, the obviously bigger, obviously tougher looking man quietly gets up to let him finish his breakfast. Like Standard, this big, ominous looking man did 6 months in jail. 6 months behind bars, however, doesn't mean that you are tough. Doesn't take a tough man to get locked up, just a dumb one. From the silver getaway car that Driver uses for the robbery in the beginning of the film, the pawn shop with $1 million in mob money, the used stock car that Nino called a
piece of shit,
or the stunt driver with a baby face like Driver. Just because something looks a certain way doesn't mean that it cannot be something altogether different. In real life, monsters don't always look like monsters. Most of the time, they look like angels. Here's a few things you may or may not know about Drive. Did you know that in 2011, Drive received a standing ovation and its director Nicolas Winding Refn the Best Director Award at the prestigious Cannes Film Festival? Did you know that Hugh Jackman was originally selected to play the driver in the film instead of Ryan Gosling? Did you know that Ryan Gosling was allowed to choose the film's director and chose Danish director Refn because he was a huge fan of his work? Did you know that for the film's head-smashing scene in the elevator, the director consulted with director Gaspar Noé for how he pulled off a similar head-smashing scene in his 2002 masterpiece Irreversible? Like that film, Refn said that he wanted a main character who was willing to resort to any kind of violence to protect innocence. Did you know that review aggregator Rotten Tomatoes gave Drive a 93% ranking out of 270 reviews? Anyway, thanks for watching my analysis of director Nicolas Winding Refn's 2011 action drama Drive. And be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the Godfather of Cinema, and hit the bell for more film related videos like this one. I will see you soon.